Yes, please. Over to Ninad, sir.
Okay, good evening and welcome to the last session. Fireside, we are dot schedule. Don't you like it?
I think it's fantastic.
I am so happy to run a program which runs exactly on time. It's rare, but hopefully we'll have more of it. So welcome, Naya. Welcome back. It's becoming an annual affair. I had the last Fireside with you around 13 months back, and now you have a baby at home, so you have some good things happening as well. So we've got 30, 40 minutes, and the whole idea is try to understand about your journey a little bit, give them things which they don't know, some lessons they can learn, and some interesting stuff where they go back with. You have inspired a lot of founders. I've seen you in the past, and hopefully this session also will inspire more. So let me start with. I've got a lot of questions, but what I'll do is I can keep chatting with her for a long time, but I'll ask one or two questions, and if you'll have anything to ask her, raise your hand. I'm not going to wait till the end to allow you to ask questions. Anytime you feel like asking, raise your hand. I'm going to decide whether you ask or not, but you can certainly raise your hand. I'm the boss for the time being in this house. So let me get going. Naya, I believe you have done law, then you're in McKinsey, all the good things in life, then at GVK Imara and PHF. This was a journey which, obviously took would have taken to a different path. And then you dropped all of that and started Baby Chakra. Why? Why would you do that?
So first of all, it's a real honor being here. And Ninad, it's always a pleasure talking to you. In fact, I'm planning to grill him on a few questions as well through this conversation. It shouldn't just be one-way grilling. But just very quickly to summarize my journey, I wrote about this recently. Actually, I write a lot on LinkedIn because I find that an outlet. So I wrote about how I find all our lives to be a series of many journeys, right? And I certainly count my journey as well. And I look back and I'm like, I'm been lucky to have those experiences. But I was sharing with someone offline. I actually grew up in Calcutta. My parents were in the government. My mum was in the civil services. We are Punjabi, but we grew up in Cal, and we picked up Bengali on the go. And our dinner table conversations were all about, how do you, if you lead one life, how do you lead a life of impact and a life of meaning? And then from there, I went on to NLS, like you correctly said, National Law School, Bangalore, where again, there was a lot of focus on human rights, international humanitarian law. In fact, fun fact, I was, one of my internships was in the International Bar Association, where I was helping train the judges for the Iraqi Special Tribunal that were trying Saddam Hussein. So that was the journey I thought I was on. And then McKinsey came to campus and they said that we're going to be, hiring for people who can help us build out the next wave of companies and the next wave of public-private partnerships. And that, in that context, Ninad, is when I experienced firsthand three, I think, incredible journeys to scale. And I saw the teams build it out, and I was just a very small part of it, but it was very, very inspiring. One was 108, the ambulance service provider. The vision there was, how do you build a 911 type ecosystem for India? The second was the Public Health Foundation of India, which was building out centers of excellence in chronic care, infectious disease, cardiovascular disease, CVD. And the third was actually with the Gates Foundation, where we were building out maternal and child health projects for India and the whole nutrition strategy. And that's really where I saw the power of communities play out on the ground, right? Where you have communities of care, when they come together, the right healthcare intervention at the right time, you have the best healthcare outcomes for communities on the ground. HBS happened, Harvard Business School happened after, and that's where I saw the power of technology to scale interventions and solutions at scale. So to cut a long, long story short, when you think back, it's all of these experiences that made me want to come back to India and build out Baby Chakra. And that platform was to basically build out communities of care, taking maternal and child health at scale. And at our peak, we had 25 million mothers and 10,000 doctors on our platform. Every, 8 minutes, we'd say a Baby Chakra baby is born. and we'd say Ghar Ghar Baby Chakra. So that really is the inspiration.
Well, I'm happy you came back.
I'm very happy to.
So, do you use baby chakra for your babies as well? You eat your own dog food?
Yes, I do. Of course, I do. So, with our older one, Arya, I'm a do bachcho ki maa, which feels very strange sometimes. But our older one, Arya, is 5.5. And, when I was building Baby Chakra, it sometimes helps to not be a consumer because you learn from a lot more openly from other consumers, right? And you co-create with them. But I realized the power of what we were building when I had Arya. And another was fantastic. 2 a.m., 3 a.m. in the morning, when you're up at night, you're feeding your child, or, you're riding about in pain from like the lower back pain that you have when you're pregnant, to see this community of mothers, then to be able to ask questions without fearing judgment from doctors, right? On what am I going through? Have other mothers tell you their experience, but more importantly, also have a very predictive, almost like a surrender-precious platform. We built it on the back very early in the day on the back of ML and learning algorithms, a little bit before our time, I think, where it was almost like they were able to cohort me into a working mother, into an urban mother, into the mother of a first time mother, right? Cohort, and then introduce me to the right set of communities, the right set of care, and the right set of content at scale was, for me, actually pretty cool to see play out. So yes, I've certainly eaten my dog food.
Great, great. So, just throw some statistics. How many people use your platform, and what is the impact you've made in terms of numbers?
So as I'd
Not
mentioned,
the financial number, I'm
Yeah.
just saying in terms of.
yeah, no. So at our peak, as I'd mentioned, we were in 25 million mothers. We had a community of 10,000
Just give a
doctors.
round of applause. 25 million mothers is fantastic.
And I think it was great, and it is great. I think if you ask me hand on heart, I still believe that this whole maternal and child health problem needs still to be solved. We're undergoing a tectonic shift as a society today, as a country today. And I've been saying this ad nauseum since 2015, ever since my first pitch, but the reality is that all of us today, 70% of us live in nuclear families today, right? And that sort of that paradigm of care, the traditional sources of care are completely broken. And so more than ever, Ninad, I feel that today we still need more and more solutions, not just one baby chakra or one XYZ, right? We need a lot more solutions that address this at scale.
Sure. So, I've been meeting her, Naiyya, for a long time, and I've lulled her into thinking that I'm going to ask only easy questions. The tough ones are going to follow, but she's made it tougher for me, saying she has questions for me, which is not allowed by the rules, but I'll allow her that as well. Suppose you're a 20-year-old Naiyya today. What would a 20-year-old Naiyya tell a present? Don't want to know your real age, but what
Can
would
tell
a
you. I'm 2x that, just multiply by 2. That's my age. I'm 40.
So what a 20-year-old would say, present day Naiyya, do this, don't do this. You're doing this wrong. You're not using AI. You're not doing. I'm just saying, don't.
I do think about that a lot because I'm constantly still learning on this journey, Ninad. And what I would tell myself is just unlearn a lot. We grew up, and genuinely speaking, as women, we grew up with so much conditioning about what we can do and what we can't do. Then there's this whole thing about, oh, this person's older, so definitely has more experience than me, right? There's this whole third paradigm of saying that, this is my scope of play, my expertise. This is what I need to build my life in. I think the biggest lesson I'd give myself is, just unlearn all of that conditioning all of us have been through, and just start every journey that you do with a very fresh perspective. And the second thing I'd say is have belief in yourself. The one big thing, and I need to tell you this, Ninad, like I always thought that these people you see in the news, on TV, when you meet them, right, you see them on stage, that they're very different. They must be cut of a different cloth. They're really super intelligent. You realize everybody goes through the same struggles. Everybody, of course, everybody is assumed, and all of us have a basic level of IQ, and then, of course, we build on our EQ through the journeys and honestly, the failures we have. But I think there's something to also be said about, the fact that there's also a lot of luck at play, a lot of serendipity at play. So, I think the biggest, again, the second thing I would tell myself is that if I were younger, which I wish I was always, but is that have belief in yourself. You know, you can go out and build whatever you put your mind to.
Great. So I'm going to ask one more question. After that, if anyone wants to ask, please raise your hand. I'll come there. Okay. So you mentioned about your struggle or your so everyone is human is what she said. Whoever you see in the newspaper or headlines is ultimately a human being and has the same kind of emotions and struggles. As a woman founder, what are the struggles you face? I'll specifically ask you, and I'm kind of hitting on my own, shooting in my own foot. There is something called a bro code in the tech industry, particularly, and VC industry, where bros are drinking together, having a smoke together, moving out together. Is that true? And how did you face any of this kind of barriers when you're raising capital?
So let me break it down into two pieces, right? One is that while raising capital, I mean, the numbers are out there, right? Less than 2% of women founders get venture funded, which is unfortunate, but that I think is changing now as we speak. But, a lot of that is also, unfortunately, based on past pattern recognition. Now, I kind of also understand where a lot of the venture funds and fund managers come from because they base a lot of their assessments on what they have seen to be successful in the past. Now, unfortunately, the past was largely predominantly male founders. So I think now they also are learning that they're building for the future. The future is very different, and they are also reassessing how they assess companies and they assess founders and their styles of functioning and their styles of leadership. So I think that is changing, not fast enough, but it's changing. I think the second piece, just from a personal context, and therefore, what does that mean for me? When I have gone fundraising, I have been asked by investors what happens when you become pregnant. My first pregnancy, I didn't actually tell anybody I was pregnant for the longest time, until I had to, until I was showing. My second pregnancy, I was confident enough to talk about it with everybody, right? I think that is a change that we all go through ourselves as founders as well, and when we are thinking about raising money and having other shareholders on our cap table. I think the piece on tech, the Bros Club, right? I think again that is changing, Ninad. Yes, you're right. There is a certain comfort, and by the way, I also, in some sense, empathize with men because they don't know how to deal with strong women. A lot of men don't know and have not had strong, opinionated, very ambitious women in their lives. So they don't know how to deal with it. And it's not just women who therefore need to make that change to find the entry and not to have a tech bros club but to have a tech club or whatever else. But even men are making those adjustments today, right? Even they are also moving on that paradigm. And just to give you an example, right? I see Rishi here. We're part of this community called the Tech Entrepreneurs Association of Mumbai, which represents the $60 billion tech entrepreneurs ecosystem building out of Mumbai, right? And we're really building it out to be the center of excellence, like Mumbai and Maharashtra to be the center of excellence for innovation, entrepreneurship, etc. When I attended the Mumbai Tech Week in February this year, which was absolutely fantastic, I found very few women in the audience and participating. And while I was, I think, 7 months pregnant at that point in time, Ninad, when we held the governing council elections for team, I decided to stand. Because I said, if we want more women to come and attend and be part of these tech communities, they need to see women on the governing council. They need to see women founders who are leading the mandate and who are watching out and saying, how do we get more women into our panels, into our, into our audience, into the hackathons, etc. So I think a lot of us also have that responsibility, the women, of course, but equally the men, to ensure that we have a much more equal representation and do away with this whole notion of tech bros.
Okay, great. I'm going to walk inside there and ask questions so that I'll motivate some people to ask you questions. I'm going to step out of the startup world and ask you a very general question. Women's safety. It's headline news today, and for the right reasons. Unfortunate, you had some incidents. Do you think startups can do something on that? If anyone has any question, please raise your hand. I'm in the audience. Yeah, go ahead.
I actually think it's not genuinely, right? I in my worldview, I would normally say startups can solve for everything. But I think this requires a lot more concerted and effort. So I actually, after the horrific rape happened in my hometown of Calcutta, I grew up in Calcutta. I've lived in Bombay for the last many years, but this was my home. I actually went back to my law school network, to my McKinsey network, to my founder network, and I said, what can we do? And I realized that while the laws are what they are, and in fact, like I was like, do we need to have even more punitive a punishment? Like, does a death penalty really need to like therefore be implemented, etc.? I think it came down to saying that 70% of all rapes actually happen, or sexual harassment cases happen with and amongst people that who are known to us. It happens behind, like in families and homes. So essentially, it comes down to saying that, and I gave this example when I was speaking recently, Nina, at the IAS Officers Academy in Missouri, where, like pulse polio, where where the nation came together, the government came together, families came together, state and central were talking, कि बस polio को हटाना है, right? 20 years it took for us, but it happened. There needs to be a similar wide scale social engineering, mass education, and behavior change movement, powered hopefully by technology, but only it's an enabler, not the answer, that can happen on women's safety in India. And then we should like stop at that point in time as a nation and talk about it at a global platform and say that India solved for women's safety in public spaces and private spaces to the extent that it did. But it requires a mass movement.
Well, it's a serious topic, and obviously we've made some interesting points. There is a question here, but as I go along there, let me ask you a question and hand over the question. Work-life balance. You mentioned about pregnancy, and you didn't mention to our investors initially. I mean, that is tough. Is work-life balance more tougher for women founder?
So I really wish some men were being asked this question as well, Ninad. You put me in a spot, but I actually talk about it as work-life integration. And I think in my case, my husband and I, my partner and I are extremely, very, very equal in the way we think about raising our children. Also, and how we divide and conquer responsibilities at home and with childcare. Also, of course, the minute we have a little bit of money or resources, then we actually over-index on people taking care of the house, people taking care of our, while like sort of, doing the basic tasks and chores that are required with our children. So I think, so that piece is somewhat taken care of between like, Sandeep and I. And we're the part, like we are the unit, right? So it's for both of us to kind of divide and conquer on that front. I think the other piece is I just don't know any other paradigm. I grew up with a mother and a father who were very equal and who were very ambitious as well. And they're still, by the way, extremely ambitious. They've retired, but mama's on a bunch of boards. Papa's like, writing all the time on maritime issues, right? So work is just part of who we are. I don't know any other paradigm. So this whole work-life balance for me does not exist. It's always been integration.
Work-life integration. Yeah, we have the first question here.
Ma'am, Shiv Khera has famous comments like, winners don't do different, they do things differently actually. So as you already have experience to scale your business, so I have a question like, sometimes we have different startup has different, area of business. Do you think that after some pilot success, every startup has to, scaling to any country, like, doesn't focus on only India, because some scaling is not possible in India, because now every country is, encourage startup to, so they have to land there either in some of the Europe country or some Australia, US, Canada actually. Because time is very important, because any startup actually, if time is missing, then, the spirit of team is, so what is your advice about it? And second thing about women's safety actually, is I think that as I am part of the lot of research innovations, and once Nirbhaya Kand was happening in Delhi actually, and that time there was a technology, but sometimes India is not getting support. Like there is a voice AI technology, whereas there is you can develop the device, because there is something happen, only one word is sounded, bachao, help me in anything. Is possible if something innovation is culturally adopted in vast India, then people are, something they are fear to do something, So how such kind of culture is Indian, whether India has that mindset to, pilot to environment to set up, or it's going to be valid in other country?
So thank you for the questions. I'll just take your second question very quickly first, and I'll go on to the first. We have something called the Safe Cities program. This was actually orchestrated, and we have state budgets allocated. I think Maharashtra has a 250 crore budget still pending to be allocated to this, which was done after the Nirbhaya case, right? And this has been signed on, and signatories. I mean, all the states, the major cities are also, by the way, signatories, right? So part of that is one, educating the police force, right, and having special women task forces and teams put up, chauki par to ensure that women's safety is taken care of. And number two, CCTV cameras. Because while you may not be able to preempt, at least you can do faster remedial action in case of in the public spaces, if anything is, if a woman is attacked or if a woman's safety is compromised. I think there's still, while we're doing a generative AI hackathon on the back of the NVIDIA Summit, team is a part, some of us are jury members, etc. And one of the topics I have planted personally is, under social good is women's safety. And I believe technology can play a big role. I think even simple things like this can play a disproportionate role. So, I always tell even myself and my team that, we think that tech is the magic bullet. No. It is our behaviors, our adoption, and our ability to digest the technology and apply it naturally in our daily lives that is the magic bullet. Right? So that's just to answer your second question. On the first, so my second company is the Good Glam Group, which Ninad mentioned, and that is a beauty and personal care conglomerate where we power our brands. And we have My Glam, which is the largest direct-to-consumer color cosmetics play in Asia. We have Momsco, Baby Chakra, which are mom and baby product companies. We have Sirona Hygiene, a female sexual health and wellness hygiene company. We have Organic Harvest. We have a few amazing brands. But as entrepreneurs, we all dream ki hum ek din, like we're building in India, but we're building for the world. This is our dream. So we actually launched in the US earlier this year. Some of you might have caught the news. We did a JV with Serena Williams, who of course I think everybody knows, and there's a lot of respect for her globally. And we did our first mainstream US beauty launch with a product called Wing Beauty. And why do I say it's mainstream US? Because it's not कि India के products हम US में लेकर बेच रहे हैं. This is actually a product range, color cosmetics range that was formulated for the US audience. And we launched it across 750 stores of Ulta, which is the second largest beauty retailer in the world after Sephora. So you're absolutely right. I think all of us have global ambitions from get-go. And, one more statistic I'll leave you. If you look at Amazon's exports from India to the US, and, only the Amazon, only the marketplace exports, it's at $5 billion already. So Indian entrepreneurs are already going global. It's not like we need to go there. We're already there.
Great, that's an amazing story. Please give a big round of applause.
Ninad, you can't force them to applaud for me. That's not fair.
That's the only way they'll motivate you. But I'm sure Manas, of course, he's on the call. But Kerala Banana Chips, he'll get some tips from you on how to go to the US market. Yeah, the next question is from Amit. Yeah.
Thanks, Ninad. Naiyya, truly inspirational to see such kind of an inspirational woman leadership. My name is Amit. I run a wellness company, but in the other world, I also am a United Nations ambassador for He for She campaign, and I have mentored nearly 20 women leaders in India. And I'll try to break into what is the pattern that I've seen in this 20 women leaders that I have mentored. Often in Hindi, they say, "औरत की सबसे बड़ी दुश्मन औरत होती है." Right. This is the common trend that I have seen, and I'll try to break it into two parts. And I need a perspective because that will also
give a perspective
that will also give fire to the fire chat. So they say that we often male bash by saying male VCs are not investing in women's led startups, or for that matter of fact, men leaders are not hiring enough women colleagues in the organization. I'll try to put a twist to it. You as a inspirational and established women leader, how many women-led startups would you like to invest in, for that matter of fact? And if you find the really smart, ambitious, fierce women leader in your team, how do you deal with it? Because that will also set a context for a lot of people over here as to how to deal with those situations.
No, thanks, Amit. I do not agree with that. I do not agree with it at all. But that is a perspective. I mean, you have experience, so you have your truth. I have mine. But I do angel invest. I angel invest very selectively because I don't have time to manage some of the investments I do. Right, and I think if I do a commitment I follow it through. But all the investments I've done, except for three, are all in women founders. And they are fantastic. Those are the best performing investments I've had. And they've had follow-up investments from folks like Founders Fund, Peter Thiel, Khosla Ventures, General Catalyst. So they've done really well, right? So I am definitely putting my money where my mouth is, to put it bluntly. Also, in terms of our team at Good Glam, now, of course, please do remember we're also a specific segment which is obviously also focused on women. So there is a bit of a bias there. But we have about 60%, 65% of our operating teams being women. And even at the leadership level, there's about 40% women. So I think we see it play out in our paradigm for sure, Amit. And there needs to be more done. Now, I think the other place where there's a lot of work that we end up doing, and I personally also am very passionate about working on, is also evangelizing stories of other women entrepreneurs. Because when I go to colleges and I go to schools and I interact with the young generation, if you ask them, I went to IIT, Bombay ESEL, the event they have every year, and I was asking the audience, I was like, how many women do you have in your batch this year? And they said this, Nina, they have 25, 30% now this year. IAS Academy, I was speaking at Labasna, the 675 IAS, IPS, IRS, new recruits, right? The UPSC graduates. 33% women. 33% women. So the numbers have shifted. Highest women in STEM globally is in India, right? So you're seeing that inflow. But when you ask that audience, name 5 women, name an entrepreneur, on who are your role models, or name 5 women entrepreneurs.
They don't know.
They don't know. Now that narrative is something that we're also looking to change, right? Now, how are we doing it? We did a lot of mass media work around this with Mint. You've probably seen it, women changing the narrative. We've done this with, building out WhatsApp communities. We have something called the Female Founders Group with more than 210 women founders of different stages, right? From me and Upasna and Ghazal and Vineet, like all of us, right? On to like younger founders on that group. So we are doing our bit. A lot more needs to be done. And also, I need to say this, it cannot be done in an echo chamber. My biggest, I think, partners, my biggest supporters have actually been men. Because this discussion needs to be mainstreamed. It can't just be me and like my kind, like talking amongst each other. Change won't happen.
Okay, so if you have any question, raise your hands. But in the meantime, give the mic to me. I'll ask a question, then come back to you. Quick commerce. What is your view? Will it overtake e-commerce? Will the Zeptos and Blinkits of the world as a, I'm not saying
This is an out of syllabus question. ये तो हमने discuss नहीं किया था, Ninad. No, but like, I mean.
Just to hold on, I'll let her respond.
No,
So there are, as VCs, and Manas is sitting there from Kerala Banana Chips. He will tell you how quick commerce is done well for him. Isn't it, Manas? Yeah.
I mean, food. All the food startups I know, their 40-50% of sales and revenue now comes from quick commerce. And that's happened in less than 1.5 years, 2 years, right? Personal care, the entire shift has already happened. For all of us, 20 to 30% of our revenues now comes from Q-commerce. And the best part is, if you really look at the way quick commerce is evolving, and it's evolving in a very agile way, right? Because the founders are hungry, right? They are building something new. It's a new paradigm they're playing in. The larger marketplaces are getting a little bit more, they're trying to figure out how to catch on to this trend, but they haven't built up that massive infrastructure that they built out with their warehousing, logistics, supply chain, the entire delivery operations. These folks have built it for this paradigm, right? So, I mean, I definitely think quick commerce is, frankly, the future of commerce.
So, in which year will it overtake the traditional e-commerce company, or it will not?
I think in certain categories, it will overtake in the next year and a half.
Wow.
In certain categories, please don't
Manas, you heard that? Year and a half, it will take over. Okay, there's a question, this gentleman.
Hello.
Rishi, if you have any questions,
Sanjay.
feel free.
I was working in Tata Group and now working at a tech company. My wife is a chartered accountant and she is also working in a one of the top company. And my only question is that do you think that post maternity the clauses is 6 months now? Do you think that it is to be extended provision for next 6 months? Because in India, if you see the after marriage, after the child care for a 1 year, it at least required for a woman. okay, to take care, it is 6 months is not the right time. Maybe is it required provisionally? Maybe 6 months is with pay. Beyond again 6 months, maybe without pay. That kind of provision to be done within the Indian industry so that the dropout rate of women should be higher.
Sure.
Okay, matlab it should be
Fair question, yeah.
balance it out in within
Sure,
the industry.
I'm sure you got it.
No, I think it's a very important question because, topics like this, by the way, don't come out in mainstream conversations and places like this. And I think first of all, thank you for bringing out the topic of childcare. I appreciate that very, very much.
I won't tell people to applaud now.
No, I mean, but it is important,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Because, I mean, we just think, oh, this should only happen in a certain
True, true.
setup. But I'm very happy that we're talking about it. See, I don't think there's a right answer or a wrong answer, right? I mean, it works both ways. If you're away from the workforce for 6 months, then when you come back, there's a lot of learning and catch up you have to do already, right? And then 1 year might, in some cases, make it even tougher for the woman to integrate seamlessly into the workplace and then kind of find her journey to her ambition. I think the question that we need to think about is one is where is the man in the equation? Because where is paternity leave? How does that man play that role? And in the US, it's now become fairly normative for men to actually, take that time out from their workplace and be really an equal partner so that the family as a unit bounces back faster. Right? So I think paternity leave is a narrative that we need to be discussing more and more in forums such as these, where all of you are decision makers and can influence the journey of your organizations and, frankly, therefore, of the country. I think the second piece to think about is the childcare resources. I mean, again, a question I keep on asking ourselves is, can a startup solve that problem? Because, how do you have high trust childcare at scale? And of course, corporates do set up creches, etc., but then they have to be economically viable. You have to have enough critical mass of people who are availing of those services. So I think that piece is still something that needs to be solved. Again, I think it requires a public-private partnership. I mean, honestly, if we could solve for DPI at the scale that we did, digital public infrastructure, what we built out in India is the first that's happened globally. We can certainly solve for childcare.
Well, that's the quote of the day. Huh? It's very interesting. Yeah, Rishi has a question, so just go there.
So I
Can-
have the mic. I have the mic. So two questions. One is in terms of moving from Baby Chakra, which was your own company, to Good Glam, which is a group, and you became a co-founder. So how was that change for you? One is that, and secondly, for the benefit of the audience, if you would like to talk a little bit about the Mumbai startup, that effort of team in building up the Mumbai startup, I think that would be nice for everybody to hear.
Thank you, Rishi. I really appreciate the second question in particular. And you should join me, by the way, in talking about the efforts that we all have. But I think the first piece, right? And how many of us are founders here? Could you raise your hand? Okay, great. So, I think the first, almost like Vidai, if you will, of our first company is a very, very emotional moment. And I'm quite a practical person in some sense, but just to sort of see it getting centralized in the group, having other people be its custodians and caregivers, and looking at its growth, very, very emotional. And I think the other piece was a very steep learning curve for me. We went from a very like maybe a 60, 70 max at our peak, like 100% team, because we were very product focused always, right? So digital products. So you normally have a very amazing kick-ass team of engineers and product and UI UX folks, and not so much in marketing and branding and all the other stuff. I didn't even know all of this. And then from there, you suddenly go to joining a group, which is, then rapidly scaling to like 1,500 people. And you're the co-founder. So I think there was in the beginning, I felt a little bit of an imposter syndrome as well. Right, because I was like, do I have the right to lead all of these people? How do I earn my chops? And then that moving on to saying, now how do I make the people who I'm building with feel excited and energized? And also we were doing a lot of acquisitions at that point in time, Rishi, you might remember, right? So how do we build trust in the ecosystem, the community that is GoodGlam? So I think that is really the phase I would say in all candor I went through as a founder, going through that transition. Now to the second point that you made, which is, and you need to join me on that. So, the Tech Entrepreneurs Association of Mumbai is actually a very, very new organization. It's a non-profit. We're registered. And it was, kicked off just about 2 years back. And it came together almost like a voluntary movement of founders who were building in Mumbai and was saying that, while we talk a lot about Bangalore and the tech ecosystem and the innovation hubs there and startups all being around certain, geographies or certain cities, Bombay actually has a lot of innovation already happening. We're the gaming capital, the fintech capital, the beauty personal care capital, the healthcare capital, the entertainment, thank you. Education, thank you. Capital of India. But there's not much that people know about it. So when people are making choices to move to cities, right, to build their careers from an engineering perspective, from a product perspective, from a market, whatever, other different job profiles, right? They all think about Bangalore, they think about some other cities, right? How do we make Bombay the innovation, the ecosystem hub of India? So that is the mission we started off with. Rishi, do you want to add a few points?
So when we had our first meeting between about 10, 12 people when we were starting up this team, we didn't have a name also at that point. We were just 10, 12 founders. We got around one evening and we decided we need to do something. When we were going around all the founders, we saw one thing which was common, and that was profitability. I think that was really the difference which we saw. The Mumbai, maybe the Gujarati, Marwari, Baniya culture which is there was a very building businesses with sustainability, and I also spoke about it. I think that was common. I think out of the 12 founders we had, or 12 companies, I think 10 companies were profitable. If you look at any other city, maybe even Bangalore has the maximum loss. If somebody looks at the data of companies or the startups which are there in Bangalore, I think maximum loss companies would be there. So that was one area which we saw was a very differentiating factor for Mumbai tech startups. And I think one thing which we realized is that the infrastructure of Bombay and the cost of living of Bombay was something which was discouraging a lot of startups to work in Mumbai. But I believe with the new coastal road and new startups, new infrastructure things which are coming up in Mumbai in the next 3 to 5 years, I think that to a large extent will gets resolved. The cost of living is definitely expensive, but with this cost of living also we are profitable. So I think that makes us very differentiated, and that's where the team effort is. And we would encourage more and more people to talk about it, is to build up the entire team, Mumbai as a big technology startup of the country.
And just to build on where Rishi left off, and thank you, Rishi, for that. We're also, by the way, working in collaboration, right? I mean, I've shared one of the theses that I hold very dear, that is that tech can't solve all the problems in the world, right? It has to be a collaborative effort. So we're actually working very closely with the government, the state government. We're working with, other sort of policy makers. We're working with corporates at scale. We're working with other, of course, startup founders at different scales as well. So there is a lot of collaboration in the work that's happening at team. And, just a few examples, Ninad, if I may. Sure. So end of this month, we have the AI Summit, the NVIDIA AI Summit, where Jensen Huang himself is coming down. And it's a milestone event, I think, for the overall sort of venture startup Gen AI ecosystem. And, of course, he's coming to Mumbai. And team is a partner, right? On the back of that, we are doing the largest, and we are trying to enter the Guinness Book of World Records with this. And team is putting this off with the backing of NVIDIA and Meta. We're doing the largest generative AI hackathon where we're solving for 4 different tracks. One of them is social good, of which, if you remember, I've put in safe cities as well. And that is, looking to enter the Guinness Book of World Records by having the largest amount of engineers, business talent, enter and run these hackathons for a period of 48 hours continuously. So there's a lot. And of course, we have the Mumbai Tech Week, where we showcase all the innovation and we bring in the top leaders from across the country and across the world to come and talk about innovations in tech and how can the Mumbai Maharashtra ecosystem really be part of that play. So there's a lot that we're doing at team in terms of really building the community, but also evangelizing and bringing in new ideas into the Mumbai tech ecosystem.
Damn good job you guys are doing. I knew about it, but no, nice. So there's time for one last question. Otherwise, I'm going to keep going, rolling. Yeah, someone has raised a hand. Yeah, please go ahead.
Hi, it is a fantastic session. I have a question about work-life integration you spoke about, from work-life balance to work-life integration. Your family works as a unit, but there are many more families who doesn't believe in family as a unit. And then the other partner somehow is not ready to understand. Making somebody understand is difficult. So at that time, maybe the woman has to stand for herself. What will be your suggestions as a third party person to such a family lady? What she should do?
You've put me on the spot. I don't have a suggestion per se because, I really believe that every relationship, every family unit is so unique in their own way. And I truly believe in problem solving coming from within, right? The minute you get an external person involved, I think I don't know, I think it makes the problem worse. That's my belief. But what I would definitely say is that, again, just there are two things I do that help me in difficult situations, right? One is I actually go back to my younger self and I think about my ambitions, my aspirations, what I want my life to be. And if I feel at any point in time, I feel like I'm compromising on those dreams. And by the way, it's not just my dream alone. My parents, my sister, my grandparents have put in so much behind my journey. I don't stand on my feet. I stand on the backs of my family. Right? So if I go back to that time and I'm like, if I feel like I'm selling myself short or someone is just not making me dream, like fulfill my ambition, then I need to understand whether I'm in the right equation. Because I'm doing myself and all the hopes of people behind me a disservice.
Yeah.
I think the second piece to it is that, we only have one life to lead. And at the end of our lives, when we look back, did we spend it the way we wanted to? Or did we live a life of compromise all our lives? These are the two thoughts I would just leave with you. And I don't know an answer because every situation is so different. And maybe the answer is that, no, I want to compromise and I want to stay in this equation. Maybe that's the answer. But then, end of your life, are you okay to live with it? Think about that, whoever it is, and make a judgment accordingly. Work outside in.
Right.
That's Naiyya for you, all very frank and honest. Now, I haven't told them to apply, but they're clapping in their own.
The session is over.
It's not over. I've got last question. And I always end with a rapid fire question. So that's going to come at the end. I want to pull you back to your entrepreneur journey. And, what are some of the myths you want to debunk? People look at you, people look at, let's say Rishi, people look at Manas, they say, oh, great guys. They're in the news that talking with so much energy and they are getting this kind of valuation. And I keep telling students, entrepreneurship is a tough journey. But you need to debunk some of the myths. And of course, motivate as well, but first debunk.
No, I think there's enough that's been said about, the fact that there is this very random glamour around entrepreneurship, which I don't know whether it really merits. But on the flip side, honestly, now let me tell you this, right? I'm actually happy there is a little bit of glamour, and I'll tell you why. When I started off my journey in 2015, right, everybody was like startup, like venture, entrepreneurship. क्या कर रहे हो life के साथ, right? Harvard गए हो, US में थे, अभी वापस आकर क्या बना रहे हो, right? ये क्या baby chakra बना रहे हो? Like it was that, right? So it was very tough. So I think right now we have a lot of tourists in the startup ecosystem because they're seeing the glamour of startups and they're like, चलो हम भी startup बनाएंगे. But the good thing is, as part of those tourists, there will also be settlers. There will be people who will come in and say, now I will unlock, and I have this unique consumer insight that will unlock a lot of value for where India is going, for my demographic, and for myself and my teams. So I think overall, that glamour kind of has attracted a lot of people, but I think there's a lot more to be untapped there and unpacked there as you think about the tourists versus the settlers, right? Now, to cut a long story short, there have been enough and more failures also. Right? And every day, actually, if you look back, there are more failures than successes and wins.
But that's the startup ecosystem.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think the one big reckoning that I would love for us to now think as the next future forward trajectory for all of us is to start celebrating the failures also. Because when we do that, we truly unlock a very different risk appetite to make that leap and then to fail and fail honorably when we do that. US has this. The US has this. India does not have it. India में अभी भी शर्मा जी क्या बोलेंगे अगर आप fail हो जाओगे. That is still unfortunately the norm.
Not as yet, hopefully.
It needs to change.
Okay, hopefully that change will happen. We have had a lovely conversation. It doesn't end without a rapid fire. She hasn't seen the questions which I've asked, and I subjected it to her year back now again, and hopefully after 12 months again. So this rapid fire, she knows the rules. You have give her two options. Don't get
Where's
stressed.
the hamper?
Coffee with Karpe. Huh? Not, I'm sure you'll come on Coffee with Karan at some point. But she has to respond within 2 seconds. You can't say neither, both, no comments. No. So very easy. Naya. You know how it goes. Scale fast or build sustainably.
Build sustainably.
Build sustainably. Bootstrap or fundraise.
Depends.
So that is not allowed.
Depends.
So baby chakra. So
It was funded. Both are funded.
Okay, fine. So winning idea or strong execution?
Execution.
Strong execution. Bombay or Silicon Valley?
Bombay.
Bombay. So do you hire for skill or for attitude?
Attitude.
Attitude. Manas, hire for attitude always, huh? Big exit or building a legacy brand? What do you prefer?
Again, it depends a little bit. You're just moving cards, so I'm going to skip that question.
No, that
No,
is
I
what-
do want to build a legacy
build a
brand.
legacy.
I do want to build a
Okay,
legacy.
building a legacy. I mean, none of them are easy questions, so you have to just select one. Product market fit or product or founder market fit?
Founder, no.
Product market or founder market?
To invest in or to build in? Like
Uh, okay, let's say invest in.
to invest in. Founder market fit.
Raise 100 million or impact 1 million lives?
I've seen both. So my first was the impact.
Impact,
Second has
okay.
been the raise.
Work-life balance, I mean, you've said work-life integration. So work-life balance or all in on work for a few years?
Integration always.
Integration. Public recognition or private satisfaction?
Private satisfaction.
India first or global first?
India first.
India first. And I had put Mark Zuckerberg and then noticed that you've met him already, so I cancelled it. If you have a chance to meet either of these two, Elon Musk or Kailash Satyarthi, who's the Nobel Prize winner.
Of course. Honestly, at this point in time, Kailash Satyarthi, I'm not very happy. This is a lot of.
And a last one. Next life, you want to become a VC or a founder?
I will always be a founder.
Always be a founder. Give her a big round of applause.
Thanks, Ninad.
No one wants to become a VC in the next life, so it will be a lonely.
No, we all respect VCs very much. Anybody in the audience, but it's a lot of joy building.
Thank you again for coming. This is my second fireside with her. Unplanned it was this time, but I truly enjoy chatting with her. Thank you again for
Likewise,
coming.
Ninad.
Thank
Over to you, Pushkar.
Thank you very much, sir. Requesting you to please felicitate Naiyya ma'am with a memento. Over to you, sir, for a conference quick wrap up.
Thank you. So food is served. That means it's. I have to ensure that everything closes. And fortunately, you're exactly on time. I really love to run my events on time. This time I could do it, but I think we had a great panel discussion. Both the panels had great panelists, moderator. Topics were great, and as usual, Naiyya gave some very interesting comments. I'm so glad we stepped out of just startups, entrepreneurship, discussed some, very, very issues of very wide nature. And I'm really happy we managed to discuss some issues which are outside of syllabus, so to say. But I'm also glad she didn't ask me any questions. She threatened she would ask me, but you'll have to wait 12 months from now. But ladies and gentlemen, thank you again for coming for this Startup Summit. We've tried a new model of starting at 4:30 rather than starting in the morning and going on till 3 o'clock. I think a lot of you people have given good feedback. So hopefully we'll do that. Keep coming to such events. If you participate, you give thought leadership, it always helps, not only for you, but for us as well. So thank you again. And with that, we close the summit and it's over to the best part of the summit, which is dinner. Thank you.